coming. I'm Kat Griefen, and I'm really pleased and honored to be able to work with me on this exhibition. I'm a director with two co-owners of Cola Griefen Gallery with Kristen Nicola, and I was previously the director here at A.I.R, so it's really kind of nice to come back and to continue working with an artist who I enjoy working with so much, and to visit for me and revisit for Susan and for some other people who know the work well, this amazing body of work that has not had an opportunity to be shown together until this very moment. Susan B. is one of the 2014 Guggenheim Fellows and was... I think the way to start is to look at what was happening with you and your work that led up to this series. So all of the work in the exhibition is between 82 and 83.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about the decade that was leading up to this work and some of the things that were led into the pieces?
Okay, well that's a really big
Well, we can go through different parts of that.
Okay, well, how far back should I go? I guess I would say that I went to Barnard when I went to, well, I grew up in New York. Let's not go there. That's too far back, probably, but my parents were artists, and I went to the High School of Music and Art. I studied painting. And then I went to Barnard, where I ran into a lot of feminism and a lot of politics. And it was a really exciting time. And I came in contact with Joan Snitzer, who's a member here, and she was the director of A.I.R. At the time, and she said, oh, you should go down and if you want to see any women artists, because there weren't any there were women's art students, but there were no teachers. There were no women art teachers at Hunter. So, and I was not really a minimalist, so it was really hard. I had a lot of color in my work, which they really didn't. So I was a little more pressed during those years, but I was very excited about the feminist art scene and going to Soho and hearing, Nancy Spiro and Anna Minjana and Mary Beth Edelson, all these people talk. And it was so exciting, I was very young, so I sat on the floor, I was very happy to go. And I think it was a big influence just to know that they were out there and they were trying to do things. Carol Lee Schneeman, people like that were doing panels, and even Roz Krauss was on a panel where she said she was not a feminist, but she was my teacher and my thesis advisor. So it was a whole network of things. So this all happens before these paintings. So I was looking at a lot of women's work. It was sort of an expressionist period. And I was trying to get this, well, of course I tried to get this work shown. As Kat knows, it never got shown. But one painting was shown, that one.
So Fighters,
that's the only painting that's ever been in public.
And that was shown at the Inter Art Center.
The Women's Inter Art Center had a show of younger women artists or something along those lines. So I was interested in the idea of combining abstraction and figuration. So on the technical level, these are that, and then on the other level, they're sort of autobiographical. And then on another level, they're also about fighting and sort of fighting your way into the art world and fighting your way into life. And also, all these women would fight all the time at these panels. So I would go to these panels, and
It's still changed, doesn't it?
no, women were ready to kill each other. I mean, when Roz Krauss said she wasn't a feminist, all these people, their hair, their thing, it was a very, and there was so much struggle going on between different feminist factions and the gay factions.
So you were at the New York Public Library?
I was at the New York Public Library. I went to the picture collection to look for images of women fighting, and I couldn't really find very many. So I took out everything I could, and that's where I found the film stills a lot of these are based on. But one painting was called, this one is based on a film still that's dated.
So this is Doomed to Win, which is the title piece of the exhibition.
Right, and that was based on a 1930s film called Doomed to Win with a male boxer when he's starting out. And I just changed the gender.
So I thought it was interesting that there have been comments about Doomed to Win that this, first of all, it looked somewhat like you, that it could have been, it could be autobiographical or it could be a self-portrait, and then also that the figure looks like she could be pregnant. She's in a dress, she's not obviously dressed to fight in the
Because of other people's work at the time, David Sally and the people that were getting shown were doing stuff with multiplicity and sort of but it wasn't really kosher for me to do it. And I was told, that this painting had 3 things in it by a dealer, and you can't do 3 different things in a painting. So
You can only do 2 things.
he said you could do 2 things, but not 3 things. So I was always doing more than 1 thing, and it was like, I couldn't stop myself. And I didn't even want to stop myself.
Yeah.
And appropriation. I was also interested in using cartoon figures.
And where do these come? What are the cards? I mean, there's very few. There's only 2 pieces in the show, and only a handful overall that I know of that have cartoon figures in them, and they're all right in this period between 82 and 83.
Right.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I had a glass that I bought at a yard sale, and it had a Petunia pig on it, and she looked really angry, and she was a painter, and I just thought, oh, that's me. That's like my figure. That figure speaks to me. I loved what she was wearing, although of course. And so I just thought, oh, well, she's kind of my little Joker figure. And so there's all these references in the paintings to bees. Like there's a little bee. I was very ambitious about the work. That's why I started painting so big, even though it was a really small studio. And so, and a couple of people came over and they said, well, you're not ambitious, because I was painting small. So then, to make sure that they thought I was ambitious, I painted them really big. And then that didn't make any difference anyway. So that made it even less likely it was ambitious. I just think it was a very frustrating time, but it was very fertile for me anyway. And I had, people like Nancy Spiro came to my studio. She said, "These are great. I'm going to try to get you into A.I.R." And she couldn't. So, I mean, even on that level, I felt like, okay. And so I was, so immersed in the New York downtown, midtown, uptown, seeing, going to theater things, and I was aware of this whole accusation that women didn't have any, women artists especially, and feminists even worse, did not have a sense of humor, and that just seemed so funny. That I had to. My paintings have always been somewhat funny, but not everybody seems to get it. And when I tried to show them to dealers, they didn't seem to think they were funny, and I thought they were funny. But I don't know that there was a tongue-in-cheek, and that had been like not that obvious humor about them. But before all those things happened. But in the very first issue of Meaning, I have this piece that's been reprinted, which just is all the things that people told me in my studio. And it's all verbatim quotes, like you need to build up your stamina, paint larger paintings. Just paint, don't think so much, you have too many ideas. I mean, it's all totally verbatim, every single one. Your work is too complex, and then you painted this. They're very handsome, I like them, but I can't use them, we're booked up right now. I mean, every single word. I would just take notes on everything that was said to me. And I was really, really good about getting people, I think I had like, I don't know how many people to my studio. You could paint bigger. Are these realistic? Paint 10 more like that. That was my undoing. I would never do it. I always used to try to paint a series, because they would always say, well, this is good if you could only make 10 more just like this. But then even now I have this problem that every single thing turns out differently. And I couldn't do it as a student and come back when you have 6 more.
So let's maybe talk about that for a minute, because I think there's a lot of interest in this work now. So, I mean, I'm interested in what you think about the shift that this kind of work was too difficult or too complicated or had too many things for that moment, but somehow it feels very fresh. I keep hearing this, or that it really resonates now, like in the...
I can't say, maybe tastes change. I mean, maybe my current work has somehow prepared the ground for this work. It's like now that you can kind of see what I'm doing, and I think I have more clarity in my current work. It's more obvious what there was a sense that there were women artists somewhere there, and it was right before the Guerrilla Girls started. So it was kind of all bubbling to the surface, but I felt like people hadn't really named the problem. Like they named the problem when they started this gallery in 72 or 3, but they didn't. The name of what we were going through in the 80s is still not really acknowledged as far as I'm concerned. Because, as we talked about last week, there were some feminist art historians here, and then photography and the pictures generation took over, and women painters were really shafted. So like being a woman painter after like Barbara Kruger and that crew took over was like, we were like doubly invisible, because not only, we weren't even the gender doing the right work, And so that was a very upsetting.
But now there's a lot of interest in
There may be some interest.
this moment in this period and in painting. So, I mean, I think that makes it interesting to look at some of this work now.
Yeah, but I think if you go back to the context of the time, I think it was very difficult for women painters, and the men were having big shows, and they were buying these, the museums were buying them, big paintings by my contemporaries, and we were not getting shown or even bought or anything, so to say nothing of taken seriously. And especially then once you got pregnant with them, so that was very bad for my career, as they said, which didn't exist anyways. But I mean, it was a very, probably 30 years to get the fellowship, and 30 years to get these paintings shown. I think I have an absurd amount of persistence. Completely insane, and I should have given off 20 times before. So I don't know why. But my career, it's okay. It's like, I mean, I think I'm pleased that people write about the work a lot, and it's taken seriously in terms of being written about, and it's great that it's taken. But it's taken so long, I don't know how it would have affected me if I had actually had an early success, but not having, you have to be really old. I mean, Alice Moore was 80, so I'm like, like tired of the game.